This is Sean with Theta Chi, Delta Chi chapter alumni stories, and I'm speaking with Ralph Hansen. You're a legend within the organization. Ralph, where are you located currently, and how are you doing today?
Well, I'm doing just fine, Sean. I'm actually in Lake Forest, Illinois, where I live, and I'm in my in-home office today.
So we were originally connected because of a very big racing family that you've known for a long time, the Unsers. I was essentially my company was hired to interview the people that knew the Unsers, from Mario Andretti to yourself to Michael and Eddie Cheever and a lot of different individuals in the race industry. And then we presented it at his 60th birthday, which you were able to attend.
Theta Chi fraternity, the Delta Pi chapter, just recently held an event in Indianapolis where we honored the entire Unser family with a special honor. And a beautiful presentation was given to Al Unser Jr., and we called them members emeritus because you can't initiate people that have already passed on. So with the blessings of the grand chapter, and they were in attendance at the event, we provided a beautiful plaque with photos from Bobby Unser's win, Al Unser Sr.'s win, and Al Jr.'s win. So they are actually now affiliated with Delta Pi chapter at Indiana State.
Well, here's a shot of him and Norma, and that's how we originally got connected, to surprise Al for his 60th. They were married last year. She's also involved with the Wings and Wheels Foundation and Future Star Racing. So it's been great really being able to hear the backstory from everybody. And here's a quick shot of Al Unser Sr., Al Unser Jr., Bobby Unser, Bobby Jr., Mario Andretti, Michael Andretti, and Roger Penske Jr. And you were very instrumental in bringing in a lot of the big brands into the sport, and also with working with Paul Newman for Newman Haas Racing. Here's a shot of you and Al Unser Jr. in a golf cart. I'm not sure where that's at. But the purpose of these is to get a little bit of the alumni's backstory in their life, as well as some great stories of the past. So this is the original house, and you said this was built in the 40s, maybe late 40s, early 50s. And like, what do you kind of know of the beginnings of how Theta Chi really got started at Indiana State University?
Well, that house was originally built for a wealthy family, the Binley family in Terre Haute. It was a beautiful home, as you can tell. The third floor of the house was actually used as a grand ballroom, but we used it as the dormitory where we had all of the beds set up for all of the members. And at one point we were at capacity, I think, with pretty close to 35 guys living in the house. I'm not exactly sure when Theta Chi first actually purchased that house, but when I went through Rush, which was in 1967, obviously that was the house. And as you'd probably know, we had a disastrous fire in 1970. And, we lost the house. It was a total loss.
All right. So you grew up in Hammond, Indiana, and went to Hammond High School, and then you ended up going to Indiana State University. And I'd like for you to just talk a little bit, because, people might know you from your involvement of, being president and IFC president for the school and also the chapter. But what were the things that you really got involved in high school that gave you the drive to be a leader, get involved, maybe sports, community activities? Give us a little bit of your background from high school.
Well, I joined a couple clubs in high school, service organizations, but the one that I was really dedicated to, I became president of. It was the name of the club at the time was called the High Y Club, and basically it's a part of the YMCA. And it was an organization basically where we would raise money by doing a number of different things throughout the year. We had the rights to operate the concession stands at the football games, and we would raise money, and we would do things like during the holidays we would prepare food baskets and deliver them to needy families that had requested help. I remember one year the YMCA wanted to start a program with a canoeing operation, and we were able to buy 4 very nice canoes. So I kind of got into the public service thing and wanting to help organizations and charities when I was in high school. And that kind of carried on with me throughout the rest of my career.
All right, so there obviously was somebody that was your first bridge into Theta Chi, but you got to have a mindset if you're going into fraternity. I personally was a Sigma Alpha Epsilon SE at Ball State, and I knew some people in my family that had legacy, but I didn't know where to go. I didn't know really what was the right fit. So what was your original kind of path to becoming and going through Rush? And was there a certain individual, or would just give us that original backstory and how you got connected?
Well, I had a roommate at the time. We were living in a dormitory, Reeve Hall at Indiana State. His name was John Shipley. And we both decided that we were going to pledge the same fraternity together. And we had quite a few mutual friends. And we literally went to every fraternity house practically, maybe with the exception of one, and went through, Rush and saw what the houses were like and what the guys were like. And by far and large, the nicest people that we met were at the Theta Chi house. And there were a number of people there that later went on to be longtime friends of mine. My big brother, Bob Baxter, and Bob Best was the president of the fraternity at the time. And I liked it because it was a very small organization. It didn't have 80 or 90 members. It only had, I believe, 23 members. And I saw that there was an opportunity to really grow Theta Chi into a big organization. By 1970, we had over 100 members at Delta Pi, and we were chosen to be the #1 Theta Chi chapter in the country. And we have the distinction in 1970 of winning first place in every event that the fraternity took, that we were involved in, including intramurals and campus review, and there was an organization, a thing called Bachelor of the Year and Songfest. And so we went from 23 men to over 100 in 3 years.
This was supplied to me by Garrett Ackles, who's also on your board for the Alumni, and he was the original connection for this whole project. Part of the goals is, you got all these guys, and then they go on out into the world, and you might have their contact info, but you've had an unbelievable road in racing, and maybe there's some younger alum that would like to get into that and be able to ask you questions. So part of the goal is to update not just where the alumni are at, but what they currently do as far as industry and their companies, so they can really piggyback off the existing network and hear some great stories. So here's a shot of you and Tony Holman. If you can explain this situation and also his connection and just kind of how that came to fruition.
Tony Holman lived 2 doors over from our original fraternity house, and he was a living legend, to say the least. And when I went to Indiana State, I remember thinking to myself how wonderful it would be if I was just walking down the street one day and Tony Holman would pass by and know my name. And I made it a goal of mine to try to get to know him and become friends with him. So when I became elected president of the fraternity, I decided to host a dinner honoring he and his wife. They had just donated about $18 million to the university. And we had a couple other pretty prominent alumni. Howard Batman, who was a Theta Chi from Alpha Iota chapter. He was Tony Hallman's lawyer. And we invited the president of the university, Alan Rankin, Dr. Rankin and his wife, and another another couple that also became an honorary, Patrick J. Ryan Sr. And we hosted a dinner, and we presented silver bowls to all the people that were at the event, thanking them for their contributions to Indiana State and helping the students. And it turned out that we were the first student organization that had ever expressed gratitude to the Hallman family. And the day after the dinner, the phone rang at the fraternity house, and one of the brothers answered and said, "Ralph, there's some guy on the phone." I picked up the phone. I said, "Hello." He says, "Ralph, this is Tony." And I go, "Tony who?" He goes, "Tony Hallman." And I go, "Oh, Mr. Hallman, I'm sorry. I didn't expect you to be calling me." He goes, "Well, it's a beautiful day today." And he says, "I'm going to fly over on my plane to Akron, Ohio. And I thought maybe you'd like to take a ride and we could get to know each other." And that started a great friendship. And when I graduated from school in 1970, he asked me to be his assistant during the month of May at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And we made him, all the chapters in the state of Indiana participated, and we made him the, excuse me, Theta Chi Indiana Man of the Year. And when our fraternity house burned down, he helped us get the financing to buy the new house, and he entirely furnished the entire house. From Hallman and Company was a general merchandise company, like kind of like a Sears and Roebuck. And he bought all the furniture that was needed. And while we were waiting to move into the house, he let 35 guys live in his hotel that he owned, the Terre Haute House. And we had a whole floor of the house, of the hotel, for ourselves. And he provided us with breakfast, lunch, and dinner, all at his expense for, I think we were in the hotel for probably 3 months.
So here's a shot I believe you're talking about at the track when you presented the award to him. Is this correct?
Yeah, that is it. And on my left is Patrick J. Ryan. And then the gentleman in the middle, most of you would recognize as George T. Kilovis, who was the national president of Theta Chi and a living legend on his own right. And then, of course, Mr. Hallman. And you can see the old pagoda behind in the background. And the gentleman with the white hat on that's kind of in the middle there was Tom Carnegie. And he was a legendary track announcer that everybody remembers so vividly.
All right, let's give the viewers a little bit of time to look at this photo because it is very iconic. And it just, what year was this? And
This was
also wondering when the pagoda, this pagoda was torn down and when the next was built.
Yeah, this was, we presented this in 1972. And this served as the pagoda for a number of years after that. The new pagoda, I can't recall exactly when it was built, but I think it was built in the late 80s or maybe early 90s.
And this is the new house that was basically purchased after the old one caught on fire and was burnt down. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a house right across the street from where we lived, and it was the former home of Chapman Root, who was a very famous man. He owned the Root Glass Company in Terre Haute, and they were the inventor of the original green swirl type Coca-Cola bottle. And to this day, they still make Coca-Cola bottles. And the portico room on the end that you see with the columns, that was a sunroom, and the entire ceiling in that room was all beautiful leaded glass. And above the ceiling, there were rings of neon lights. And when you would turn it on, the neon lights, the colored neon lights would illuminate the leaded glass ceiling. And I don't know for a fact if it's true or not, but I was told that the leaded glass was actually made by Tiffany Studios, maybe Louis Comfort Tiffany himself. And I don't know, frankly, if it's survived until today, but it was truly a work of art.
All right, so here's a shot of you in front of your pace car. Give us a little backstory on this.
All right, that was the first year. If you look at the car, it says May 30th, 1970. That was the first year that I worked for Mr. Hallman. And he was gracious enough to allow me the use of one of the Oldsmobile pace cars. They provided pace cars to all the members of the Indianapolis 500 Festival Committee and basically all of the executives of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So it was quite an honor. And you can see that May 30th, 1970, that was my first year actually working for Tony. My first year attending the 500 was 1969, and that was when Mario Andretti won the race. And I later ended up representing him. That's a picture of Mr. Hallman's yacht, which was.
Well, let me ask you a couple things about it. So, obviously, Mr. Hallman had a lot of different business ventures. Where exactly was this yacht? And here's the next shot of you and your brothers on the yacht. And what was kind of the lead up to you being able to get on this beautiful old classic boat?
Yeah, that boat was built for the DuPont family originally. And it was kept at Ocean Reef Club at Key Largo, Florida. And I believe it was actually in 1969, I think. Mr. Hallman invited me to come down for spring break and spend spring break with him on the yacht. And if you see that little boat that's in the foregrounds, that's actually he and I in that boat going out grouper fishing. But I told Mr. Hallman, I said, I would like nothing better, but I said, I've made a commitment to take 4 of my fraternity brothers to Florida for spring break, and I don't want to let them down. And he says, oh, that's all right. He said, they can all come. So
here's a shot of you and the guys.
Yeah, and if I'll go from the left to right, the first, the one on the left with the Theta Chi shirt on was Steve Hines. He was vice president of the fraternity, and he was my little brother. The one next to him was Don Shoemaker, who unfortunately passed away at a young age. And then there's me, and then the person next to me is Mark Lang, and directly behind Mark in the blue shirt is Kim Thompson. He was a secretary for our chapter. And then Tony Hallman with the big grin, and the gentleman next to Tony Hallman was his son-in-law, Elmer George. So that was our group that we had, and we were sitting in the lounge on the back of the yacht when that was taken.
All right, well, let's give the viewers a few seconds to check this out. It's a cool classic shot from the 70s, and the fact that you guys are fraternity guys on a yacht in Florida, I'm sure it was kind of a big moment, and you became even more of a legend after this situation of getting these guys on the boat, I would assume.
It was, none of us could believe it when we didn't know what to expect, and I didn't know what the boat was like, and we were all nervous. And we arrived at Ocean Reef Club, and they had the big, all the yachts were docked, and one on one side, one on the other side, and they were all big yachts. And then at the end of the yacht, at the end of the harbor, there was sort of a T, and there was what looked like a ship at the end of the dock. And I'm looking at that thing, and I'm staring at it, and on the smokestack was the wing and wheel symbol of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And I said to the guys, oh my God, that's Mr. Hallman's yacht. And we couldn't believe it. I mean, it was twice as big as any of the other yachts in the whole harbor. He had a crew of I think 5. He had a chef, gourmet chef on board. And that day when we went out fishing, we caught a couple grouper, and we brought him back that night, and he had the chef make grouper chowder. And I'm thinking to myself, chowder made out of fish? That doesn't sound too good. Well, it was the most delicious thing I think I'd ever had. And but yeah, we had a wonderful time. We didn't all stay on the boat. There was a hotel at Ocean Reef, and I think you can kind of almost see it in the background. And he got rooms for the brothers, and everything was complimentary. It was an amazing experience.
All right. It sounds good.
All right.
Well, thank you for your time. Just stay in the line, but I'm going to close this one out.
All right. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.